Hey guys, this is Jim, Alabama Deep. So, okay, I want to do a video today. And this video is entitled Anybody Can Own a Rolex Watch. And you can. If you have a job, you can literally buy a Rolex watch. Oh, you see that glistening? That's my baby. That's my fully authentic, 100% legitimate Rolex watch. And I made it. That's the key how to anybody can own their own legitimate, real Rolex watch is that you can make it. And I'm going to tell you a little bit how you can do that today. So you're like, wait a minute, I can't do that. Making a watch is incredibly too hard to do. I'm not going to be able to do that myself. It's not true. You can do that. I didn't think that I could do that, but guess what? I did it. And I did it over a period of 1 year. Technically 1 year. So, how do you get the parts? And let's not kid ourselves, Rolex is getting to the point where they're making it very hard to find parts for their watches. But luckily for our friends in China, they're taking care of that. And thank goodness for other watch collectors out there. They have plenty of vintage parts that they're selling that you can buy in lots. This particular Rolex that I'm wearing today is a 1965 5506. Technically an Air King / Explorer because the reference number covers two watches with the same number, which is rare within itself. So I got a rare case to start out with. I paid last year $202 for the case. It's 18 karat gold plate. Yes, Rolex did gold plate watches back then. They were never solid, or they could be, but you could also get them gold plate or gold clad, just whatever they want to classify back then. Nowadays, they are, 18 karat Rolex gold. They have their own foundry for that. And they have their own little mark for that as well on how they rate that. So, how do you start out on your dream to be able to buy a Rolex? You just can't put it together right off the bat. And no, you can't. It takes time and practice. Practice makes perfect. I will be the first one to tell you that. Much like it was told to me in the funeral service industry, practice, practice, practice. Because you have to know what you're doing. And I've made plenty of mistakes during the time of my apprenticeship doing that. It's like that with anything. Practice makes perfect. You have to have practice with everything in life. There's no secret to that at all. So, this is what I did to be able to afford my Rolex. And I'll show it to you here in just a minute because I'm very proud of my watch indeed. First thing you need to do is watch plenty of YouTube videos on watchmaking. After you watch those videos, you can start taking their advice on things that you'll be needing for this journey that you're going to be taking of being able to get your own Rolex. Everything you see, believe it or not, I either got it off Wish.com or I got it off eBay. Everything. I have my little screwdriver set right here. This isn't how it came. These are adapted to my liking in what I use to assemble my watches. I then went on to eBay and I bought a bunch of watches in lots. Bulova, Oris, watches like that. And I totally screwed them up. I took them apart. I never got half of them back together. But I learned from that point on, the functionings of an automatic watch, of a winding watch, battery operated watches. And when it came to battery operated watches, I wanted to go cheaper than that. So I went to wish.com. And when you go to wish.com, you can find the Black Bay. I got these little fake Black Bays. Go ahead and show them to you. These little fake Black Bays, $5 a piece. But the good thing about having these watches come to you is that you always have extra parts. You know, just because the main watch itself is shit, which it is complete and total shit, you can use the pieces themselves for other projects. So it's never a waste of money because you can reuse the crystal, reuse the crown, reuse the case. And I will say that the cases from even watches that come off Wish, they're not that bad. You can do a lot with those. And indeed, you can expand on that. You can make them better. You can polish them. You can make them your own form of oyster case if you wanted to. I mean, there is a lot that you can do with those watches. And here I am right now making a video, and I'm playing with a case that came off of Wish. And these things can be hard to open, like this one is. I doubt I'll ever get this one open. Even my little rubber ball doesn't work. But I can take the crystal off and reuse it on another project. I can use the bezel ring, use it on another project. Use the crown on another project. I can use the dial. I can use the hands. I can use the movement. Use the stem on any other project that I have. And they're not hard to take apart and put back together. Just in talking to you, I put the bezel back on this watch with my hand. It's not hard to do. And so, after you start taking your watches apart, and you start seeing the videos on the things that you need, and you get the instruments that you needed, and you get the familiarity with using the tools, losing every part on the watches that you buy, you'll eventually get to the point where you feel like you can assemble your first daily beater. And I'm just as proud of this watch as I am my Rolex here. This watch was the first one that I ever made. Now, it's not perfect by any stretches of the imagination. As a matter of fact, if you can tell, it's a sweeping hand. This was a battery-operated watch from Wish. It was a cheap $5 Black Bay, free shipping, sent to my house. But I was able to put mechanical movement in it. I took a bracelet off another Wish watch. I put a Rolex band on it, bracelet, and I have a functioning watch. The very first one I have ever made. And there it is. And I'm proud of it. I'm proud of it because I made it. Not because it says Tudor, but because I made it. That's all there is to it. Is I put something together that works. It functions. It does what it's supposed to do. And I put it together. And this is part of your journey to being able to get your own Rolex. So once you start breaking watches down, you'll move up to more expensive watches. Oh, indeedy, most more expensive watches. Give me 1 second, I'll show you one of those. Here is one of those watches. Well, this isn't one of those. This is a Citizen's. But nonetheless, it's one that I put together. A little bit of a shake, and it's going to start to go. Nice, huh? But you'll move on up to more expensive watches. You'll learn how they work. You'll see the quality in them, and you'll begin to appreciate it just as much as you do your dream of having a Rolex. You'll do that, and you'll build in your collection of everything that you have here. And I'll show you what I have on my workbench. And then eventually, yes indeedy, you will work your way up to eventually one day putting together your dream watch. And this is important because I learned this in a Rolex group on Facebook. People are going to put you down for that. They're going to say, oh, look at that watch. It's ugly, it's horrible, it's a Franken watch. No, it's not. Stay true to your dream of the Rolex that you want. If you're going to have a 5506, then make it a 5506. Don't take a shortcut on it. Don't put cheap movement in that case and dial and say it's good enough. There's nothing wrong with owning a fake Rolex. There's nothing wrong with it. You just have to be honest with yourself and people to let them know it's fake. If you want to own a real Rolex watch, you need to make it. And you need to make it correctly. And by that, a lot of people will simply settle on putting this cheap, disgusting movement into their watch. This is what's on the inside of a fake Rolex, by the way. The exact same thing. That's bad. You can buy these for like literally $5 off eBay. You know? But if you spend just a little bit more money, then you can start having much nicer movements. For example, this movement. This movement right here is Rolex movement. This is hand winding movement, but nonetheless, it is indeed Rolex movement. You can later move up in the game much more, and you can buy 3135 Rolex movement. You can get that. For me, with my dream, it took me a year. And that's part of it. If you want a real Rolex, then it's worth the wait. This is what I have. This is my 5506 Rolex watch. And I'm going to show you in much more detail in just a little bit how I put this watch together. I'm going to show you my workbench and everything. So, let's recap where we are. Anybody can own a Rolex watch. Anybody. Anyone can own one. It's just using your wits and your brain to be able to do so. It's not that hard to do, is it? You simply have to learn how to make it. How to restore the watch. This watch, right here, as I've already shown you once, it's not a Frankenstein. It's not a Franken watch like other people want to say it is. The movement, 5506. The case, 5506. The hands, I'll give you that. They're aftermarket, but not a big deal. I can put 5506 hands vintage on them right now. That's not what I want on it. I want the Mercedes on them. I don't want the Lance. I could care less about those hands. To me, they're not as attractive as the Mercedes. And I decided to go with silver hands and a silver crown with gold, because why not mix it up a little bit? It's not a Franken watch because it's Rolex parts. Every last little bit of it, Rolex. I could send that off to Rolex Servicing in New York right now. They would service it, send it right back to me with paperwork. It's legitimate. So, recapping what we did. Anyone can do a Rolex. Anyone can have a Rolex if you're willing to put the time and effort and knowledge into it. You can work at fast food and own a Rolex. And, you know, sure, people can always have good credit and be able to buy one on payments, but you're looking at $300 or $400 a month. Not everyone can do that. My watch that I have here, I literally have probably about $550 into it. Everything. $550. Okay? You can't buy a vintage Rolex for that nowadays. This watch right here sells for $5,000, $6,000. Rolex, like I said, has upped their game. Things are getting more and more expensive. So, anyone can own one. You have to watch the videos, buy the equipment, experiment, and get to the point where I am where I can take one apart, put it back together, and service it. Hell, you know, I make money on the side restoring watches. I make money on the side building watches. I make money on the side selling watches. Have I ever sold one of my Rolex watches that I made? No. Couldn't afford it. But what I can do is I can beef up someone's replica for them to make them feel a little bit better about it. And at the same time, I guide them along the way of buying a real one. Because that's what they ultimately want. And I have a friend named Buddy. He wants a Rolex watch. He has a GMT Master. It's not real, but he wants it to be very badly. So what we will do is, in time, we'll get him there. We'll get him a GMT Master. We can build one. Sure can. There's all types of parts on eBay. Amateur watch building groups. I mean, dials, bezels, cases, the movements, hands. It's all available on the internet. And it's all legitimate. And so you're not really making a Frankenwatch. What you're really doing is restoring a GMT. You're restoring a 5506. You're not making it. You're putting it back the way it was originally made by Rolex years and years and years ago. And that'll be backed up after everything's put back correctly with the original parts and it's sent to Rolex servicing. They send it back with the receipt. And, you know, there's servicing that they put into it, making it what it is. Then you have your paperwork that is legitimate. And ultimately, yes, that's probably what I'll end up doing is making them, servicing them at Rolex and then turning around and then selling them for a profit. But that's a different conversation. So, now we're to the point is, well, watchmaking. How do I get to building this watch? Well, you've watched the videos, you've got the tools. Now you're starting to experiment. And you're experimenting with the watches like I built right here. You're getting to the point where you're restoring citizen watches. You're getting to the point where I bought a Super Seville, and it's going to need to be restored, but it does work. I got a Super Seville. I got it cheap. It's probably worth about $1,000 at this point, and I could turn a profit on it tomorrow. So it can be lucrative as well. But you've moved up from cheap watches from Wish. You've moved up from cheap watches from lots on eBay. You've now moved up to more expensive watches, and you can tell the craftsmanship is vastly different. I can certainly say this about fake Rolexes, is that they are pieces of shit. No doubt. They're just bad. And these AAA replicas, they're not really AAAs, not unless you spend about $700 on one. And even then, it's just going to have cloned movement, which is legitimate 3135 movement, but it's not made by Rolex. And there are some differences in the balance wheel, so on and so forth, but some of the parts are actually interchangeable. So I guess eventually you'll move to the point where you're working with 3135 cloned movement and putting it back together, taking it apart. You can move on to the real deal. You know, practice makes perfect. So I'm going to see if I can do this. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring, if I can, my watch into focus. I'm sorry if, you know, it's not perfect for everybody. I'm trying to show you. Let's get it under the light. So, that's my watch. I'm so proud of it. I'm so proud of it. And I was able to do so learning the tricks of the trade itself. Here's all of my stuff that I have. I have some projects sitting over here. As you can see, I do have a deep sea I need to work on. That's a fake. I'm actually just horse playing around with that. What I do have over here is I have my presses, have my wrench set for Rolex oyster cases. I have my buffing device, which is just a Dremel tool. Some of these cases that you'll want to go ahead and get some jeweler's rouge, and there's various types. That's just one form I use right now. And watch hand removers. I mean, there's just so much that goes into this. This would be for putting your hands on your movement. There's just so much to this. But let's go over. It's not too expensive. This press I got, which is a clone of a Swiss Rolex. It's just a watch press for removing the case back. You know, you can use it for putting your crystals in, etc., etc. I got that for literally $10 off eBay. My wrench set, which I have here, that was like $25. You're definitely going to need one of these. You'll need one of those. You have your screwdriver set. This screwdriver set was only, I think it was like $15 on eBay. You have various different case holders and holders for your movement. And then you have the various different movements that you're playing with. Now this is very pretty. That's a Rolex dial. And that will go on to a different watch at a different time for a different day. You have various forms of movement that you'll be experimenting with and learning how they work. Devices for not only movement, but for removing pins on bracelets. And you'll have so many extra parts. I have cleaner here. Now, it's probably not the best cleaner in the world, but it's nonetheless cleaner. But that's just some of the stuff that you'll be coming into contact with as you continue on with the dream of having your own Rolex. And this watch, once again, I'm so proud of it. Yeah, I know, I'm dragging it in the ground. But nonetheless, I'm proud of my watch. Something that I wanted so bad. And guys, when I say I'm dirt poor, you know, I make $35,000 a year. I have a lot of medical bills going out. You know, it's overwhelming. You know, but even the poorest of poor can do this. Even working a fast food job, working at Walmart, you can do this. You know, you just got to put your mind to it and do it. One of the secrets that I have learned is that when you're doing this, and perfect example is the movement in this watch. The movement in this watch is 31:35. Okay, now I think the original movement was 31:30 for 1965, but okay, it's upgraded a little bit, but it's real. The movement was rusted solid. It was garbage. Okay, oh my God, I don't know what that watch went through. I feel so sorry for it. But it came to me in a big old rusted pile. Wish became my best friend. Literally, all my instruments came from Wish. They came from eBay, cheap. Okay, $4. Like I said, this is probably about like 15. And these are ones that I've put together for myself, because that's all I need to be able to dismantle a watch. I got my the press Rolex Oyster case thing, $24. Press, I think, was like $10 or $15. I mean, it's, you know, look cheap. You don't have to buy a brand new. I wanted an ultrasonic cleaner, but I couldn't afford one. You know, those things were like over $100. Let me show you what I came up with. There we go. This is what I came up with. I know what you say. It's like, oh, Jim, that's absolutely horrible. That's a joke. And literally, you'll have people say, oh, you're joking. Well, you can just tell them, no, I'm not joking, because this works just as good as the $100 one. I promise. Yeah, it moves around a little bit. That's what suction cups are for. Yeah, you can hear it moving around. Blah, 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 blah. But hey, it works. This was, I think, $10 off of eBay. But surprisingly, this cleaned 3135 perfectly. Overnight. It took all the rust off of it overnight. And I used vinegar and hydrogen peroxide to do so. But cheap little things like this is what got me to that. You know, learn to work with things. As a matter of fact, after this video, I'm going to start my next build. And what is my next build, you may wonder? Is I have this watch. Let's have a look at this thing. Oh boy, is it terrible. This is a fake Tudor. But nonetheless, I'm going to have a bit of fun with it, and I'm going to turn it into a nice automatic watch like this. And one thing that I have learned is that after you make your watches, you kind of get addicted to it. You like doing it. It's fun. And it is to me. It's very much fun. I grew into it. I started out just wanting one watch, and only one watch, but now I'm having fun with others, and I'm having fun creating watches, and I'm having fun making a little bit of money on the side. And, you know, yes, I'm human. I'm enjoying bragging about my newest accomplishment, which I've been wearing this one now for 48 hours, and I'm just ecstatic over it. And yeah, so I have Buddy, who's my best friend, who wants that GMT Master, and he's like, hey, that looks nice, it looks very sharp, that's awesome. And it is very awesome, and I'm going to make sure he gets his dream taken care of too. And we're going to take care of that by getting him his authentic GMT Master. And I'm going to call it reconditioning. I'm going to call it restoring. I'm not going to call it fabricating a Frankenwatch, because it's not really, like I said, it's not really a Frankenwatch. After you put all the original pieces back on it, it becomes the actual watch itself. Because there are no false parts in it, right? Send it off for servicing. Rolex says it's real. Well, it's real then. And then at that point, if you want to sell it, you can turn around and sell it. But I doubt Buddy ever will. But yeah, this watch right here, this is one of the $5 watches off of Wish. It really, as far as quality goes, it's not really all that bad. The case is nice. Yeah, I think it's a nice watch. So I'm going to go ahead and take care of it. We're going to make it a sweeper. And to do that, I'm going to have to break it down, clean it up, go to town on it, and get it together. And I think one thing I'm going to do is we're going to have to remove this clasp. That clasp is horrible. I mean, you can tell that's a fake just by looking at that. So we'll put a better clasp on that. But that's for another video. Anyway, the whole point of this video is that anybody, if you're a working man or woman, you can own your own Rolex watch. And it's even better for women because women Rolexes sell dirt cheap compared to men's. Okay, and I know women are think it's like a size issue for men, but look, every man I know wants to have a Rolex watch. You know, it's just one of those man things. It's a guy thing. So we all want one. Some buy fake. Some like me put them together and they're real. It just depends. But yeah, I can see the size thing going on there. You know, how big is yours compared to mine, right? But yeah, for women, you can make your own Rolex watch extremely cheap. You know, I get women Rolex movement plus the dial and hands and crown and stem and everything for $50. You know, I have a Rolex Precision from 1957 I got for my wife, and it was literally $55. Just put it in a case, right? And you can find cases anywhere, even on Wish. And like I said, that's not all that bad. Okay? Links are solid, case looks solid. You know, I think there's a lot you can do with some of the watches you get from Wish. They can be upgraded substantially. And I think that's because the way they manufacture them, low grade, high grade, etc. And their crystals, if you look at the crystals, their crystals really are not that bad. You can do a lot with their crystals. So anyway, that's the whole gist of the video. Anyone can own a Rolex watch. Educate yourself on videos. Buy the instruments to do it with. Start with cheap watches from eBay, from Wish. Break them down. Study them. Then move on to assembly of a watch. Then you know how they go together. And do different movements, different types, different cases. And let your education grow. Then work your way up to a more expensive watch like an Oris, or you can even go with Bulova. I have a Super Seville I bought. That Super Seville is homage to Rolex's day date in gold. I have it, and I've restored it, and I wear it all the time as well. And, you know, then you can work up to assembling a Rolex. You can work your way up to, after you've done those little higher end watches, and you don't necessarily even have to do a high end watch. You can use the 2813 movements. They work within the same principles as